can you state for us your full name?
Certainly. Elliott, Elliott, Dribbon, D as in David, R-I-B-B as in boy, O-N.
Great. Okay, Jess, whenever you're ready, go for it.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
In New York.
What was life back then?
Wonderful. Great.
What conflicts did you take part in?
During the war,
Yes, sir.
I took part in 5 different major conflicts. That was the Ardennes, first of all, Normandy, the Ardennes, Central Europe, northern France, and I do have one other. The Ardennes. There's 5 of them.
What were you doing when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor?
I was just getting out of high school.
With what units did you serve?
I was with the 12th Field Hospital.
What did you do in the service?
I was an X-ray technician for mobile units. Mobile units meaning we moved, such as you see on TV, MASH, the movie. That was nice to have a MASH unit, but we weren't. We didn't have self-built. We used tents only. We didn't have permanent structures at all. And our X-rays were from 3 trunks we took apart and put together. I was sent to school for that by the Army, a 13-week crash course to learn all about the bones, every bone in your body, every organ in your body, and I was able to X-ray those people as they came off the field.
What did you do in the service?
I was an X-ray technician.
Which theater of war were you in?
European theater.
Which battles did you take part in?
Well, can you explain more or less like about the Ardennes? Well, let's start with Normandy first.
Well, Normandy, we went in. I was advanced for my unit. We went in on D+6 to try to find a spot where we could set up our field hospital. Unfortunately, there wasn't any areas to set up, and our rest of our unit didn't come in for about a week later. And then we started moving towards northern France, which was Cherbourg, which we finally took.
With what units were you helping?
We were with the 9th Army Corps. We weren't really attached to anybody. Wherever they needed us, we were a headquarter unit. Our insignia was a headquarters with an ADC unit with a little arc over it saying we're the advanced unit. And that really was our unit, because we went with all different outfits wherever we were needed. We were a very mobile unit. We set up and put down. We could set up a hospital unit in less than 8 to 10 hours. That's including the operating room, the X-ray room, and everything else. X-ray tent, operating tent, not room.
All right, Jess.
Show you the switch battles?
No, just go on to.
Right.
Well, actually, before. So the Ardennes, for those people that don't understand what the Ardennes, can you explain?
The Ardennes is a forest, a big forest. That's where most of the Battle of the Bulge took place. It was part in France and part in Belgium. Actually, Bastogne itself was in France, I believe. And we were getting those that we could get through the lines, we were able to take care of. But they were really cut off until, I would say right after Christmas, when the weather broke, we got an influx of a load of wounded soldiers, and we took care of them. Well, our rate was about 90% taking care of patients so they didn't have to have their arms or legs removed or anything like that. But we had a lot of difficult problems. The weather was horrendous, was freezing cold, and a lot of our soldiers had frostbitten feet, had to have their feet removed.
So during the Battle of the Bulge, or Bastogne, when the army was surrounded, or I can't remember which unit was actually surrounded, but you treated those men, right?
We treated them as fast as we could get them. We could not get through the German ring that was around Bastogne. What we were able to do is we did get some first aid people come through with some wounded, but we were right behind that. And as the Germans were moving closer into France, we were right behind. We were 100 yards away from them, perhaps. That's all. But we were moving with them. And it was a very difficult time for the soldiers. We lost a lot of people there. We lost, I believe it was something like 18,000 that were killed and about 80,000 that were wounded during that battle. And we took care of a goodly portion of those wounded.
Okay. What specific details do you remember about combat sights, sounds, and what you saw?
Well, combat, we weren't actually a combat unit. We tried to save lives, we didn't take them, which is difficult for people sometimes to understand. As I said before, we helped an awful lot of GIs that were wounded. The way a setup is, so just so you're aware of, the first field of where a wounded soldier would go would be the first aid station, which was right in the field of battle. Then would come the 12th R hospital, the field hospital. Then would come the evac hospital, and then the general hospital. And it would go from one to the other as it was needed. If we could get somebody back into action from the field hospital, fine. If we couldn't, we had to shift them over to the evac hospital. And from there, we lost them. We didn't know what happened to them at that point.
Tell me about the chaos of war. Do you know where the enemy was at all times?
Pretty much, yes. Yes, we did.
Do you always know what was going on around you?
About 95% of the time.
How did you feel towards the people you fought?
Hated them.
How did you deal with all of the wounded people you helped?
I felt very good that I was able to help them, and unfortunately, those that we weren't able to help, sometimes a bunch of us would sit down and cry, actually cry.
Can you tell us a little about the people you served with?
Sure. We served with the 12th Field Hospital was a total of 196 soldiers, GIs, about 21 nurses, and about 30 doctors. We were split up in platoons, well, first and second and third. I was in the second platoon. You split those people up. At Cherbourg, we were one unit, so everybody was together. But as we went into more battles, we split up into units, first, second, and third units. So our unit had maybe 7 nurses, 8, 10 doctors, plus the balance of the GIs.
What did you miss most from home while you were overseas?
Home. You miss a lot of things. You miss the music, you miss the cleanliness, you miss people, you know. You get to be very friendly and very close to the people you're in the service with. You do. And they're your buddies, and they take care of you and you take care of them, whether you're in battle or in our unit.
After the war was over, was it easy to put the experience behind you?
Not initially, no.
What do we need to remember about World War II?
Not to have another war. It's difficult. That's difficult. You see so much. We saw so much. You know, you see a soldier, another soldier in the infantry, and the soldier dies beside you. That's something you don't forget. But you see hundreds of soldiers coming through the hospital that are dying or dead, and that lingers with you. So your feeling is you hate war. You don't want war for any reason, if possible, not to have it.
What was the worst moment?
Worst moment? Well, there were two. One was after the Battle of the Bulge, the soldiers coming in. They were such bad shape. It was terrible. And the other one was, we were going to pick up some material that we needed, and as we were driving in our ambulance, we were hit by right in front of us, a German tank blew a hole in front of us. Instead of hitting the ambulance, they missed us, thank God, and hit the hole, and we went into the hole. And I had 3 or 4 broken ribs, and everybody else was fine.
What difference do you see between your generation and the generation of today?
I think we were more tolerant in our day. I don't think they're as tolerant today as they were.
All right. When you, since you worked in the field hospital, obviously there was a lot of bad things happening, or it happened, and you saw the result of combat.
Right.
How did you deal with that?
As I said, there's many a time after a full day. There was one 3-day period where we didn't have any sleep for 72 hours. We worked right through. The ambulances were just piled on top of one another coming into us. And after about 70 hours, 72 hours, we just sat down and looked at each other, and some of us, the tears were just coming down because of what we saw and what we had to deal with. It's a very emotional time after the fact. During the fact, boy, you rolled with it and you did everything you could for the people. You didn't have any thought about anything else except getting that patient that was in front of you taken care of.
Now, when you first went over there, like you said, you must have joined after
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
Did you? What made you join your particular field?
They put you in it. They give you a test, your IQ test, and they say, "Oh, you're good for that. You're good for this," and you don't have much of a choice, really. They gave me my test, and they said, "Oh, you're in that category, higher category, so let's send you to school for 13 weeks, and let's get you educated to the parts of the body that's, and the other, anything necessary for the x-ray." We were in class from about 6 o'clock in the morning till about 9 o'clock at night for 13 weeks. And they drilled into us every bone in the body, every part of your organ, all the organs, which was necessary because you didn't know where shrapnel was going to be or bullets were going to be. And we, as technicians, had to pinpoint so the surgeon could see from the x-ray where that was. And they get to it a lot faster.
Okay. Well, you said you grew up in New York.
Yes.
New York City?
Brooklyn.
Oh, great. What part of Brooklyn?
Flatbush.
Flatbush, okay. When you, during that time, the early 40s, what was life like, and did you join with a bunch of people? Did you go by yourself? Were you drafted? How did that all take place?
I was drafted. I asked to, well, that's odd. A bunch of us that had gotten out of school went in and said, we'd like to get in before, we don't want to be volunteer, but we don't want to be the last in line to be drafted. You know, kids do stupid things. I don't say it was stupid, but we did it. So we went in there and said, we'd like to go first.
Okay. When you finally got over to Europe, and you're in the Battle of Normandy, and how did you, when you first initially started to actually get to doing your specialty, when you started treating people and seeing what was going on, what was your initial? Well, first of all, how did you kind of mentally prepare yourself for that?
You mentally prepare yourself because of all the drilling that has gone into you. We've putting up and setting up. We were in the United States for quite a while. Ro, can I have some water, please? We were in the United States for quite a while. We were in California. We'd set up a tent. We'd set up our units there, and have soldiers that were, you know, hurt, not injured by gunfire or anything. Thank you. But that, and then we were in England for quite a while before the invasion, and we set up at different areas, different towns, and took care of perhaps some people there that was needed, but nothing to the extent of what you're asking. How did we deal with it? We just did. We just did. I mean, the first time I saw a leg that was missing, I threw up. But you get used to it, and you know that what you're doing is for good. So, you know, these things happen, and you get used to it. I hate to say the word used to it, because you never do, really. But you get used to doing what you have to do.
Well, talking about the first time you saw somebody severely injured, your first experience of getting the wounded in, what was that like? The shock of seeing these people?
Well, we getting the wounded. Well, when the wounded come in, there's a triage that sets up. Triage is the doctor or the nurse. Usually, it's a doctor that is in charge, and he says, this patient needs to be taken care of before that patient because his wounds are more difficult. From there, usually I get them from there. If it's a gunshot wound or a shrapnel wound, I would get them and x-ray them and try to pinpoint where those wounds are and where the shrapnel is, because x-ray will pick up metal. Where that is. And usually I would take it into the surgeon, and I would, if he didn't see it, I saw it because I was so used to it. And I would point out where the shrapnel was or where something was, and he'd go into operation.
Now, during the tail end of the war, did you like when the war was kind of winding down, what was the general feeling of the troops you were with? Did they know it was coming? Did they know the end was near?
We felt it. We felt it. By that time we were in Germany, and we had the last stop we had was in a town called Hildesheim, which was an airfield for the Luftwaffe, and 2 Luftwaffe planes came in to surrender. And the war hadn't ended right yet. from what we gathered, but they were running out of fuel. But we looked at those planes and we said, how did they fly? They had no propellers. They were jet planes that the Germans had, we didn't have. We never had helicopters in those days, which were easy to transport troops or wounded into battle. A lot of things we didn't have that they have today, unfortunately. If we didn't have it, maybe there wouldn't be a war. But that's the way we handled it, really.
Did you treat any German soldiers?
Yes, yes.
How did you feel treating the enemy?
We felt it was our duty to treat them as a human being, we thought. But yeah, we treated them. They had to wait for our troops to be treated first. Truthfully, we didn't care what their difficulty was, how bad their wounds was. Our troops get treated first, and rightfully so. We had a lot of, we as non-combatants, so we're still fired on, we were shot at and things like that. So we had a lot of problems there.
During your time over there, were you ever, fired on by artillery and mortars?
Yes.
How was it? What was that experience like?
You know, you don't think about it as it's going on because you're dealing with patients as it is. Our first prime duty is to take care of them. As far as the gunfire or the bombs or whatever it was, we didn't have that much, but we did have them. Our biggest ones were the V2s and the V1 rockets that they fired. Those were bombs that that was actually missiles, long-range missiles from Germany, and they didn't care where they landed, but they had the area located. In other words, if you were in a town called like Liège, Belgium, which we were in, they would target that area, but nobody knew where in that large area a bomb would fall. So when you heard the motor go off, it was a putt-putt motor, and you heard that sound go off, you counted 10. If you reached 10, you know you were safe. You'd be surprised how many people started 1, 2, 3. A lot of us did, because they were coming over fast and furious. But yes, we were fired on. We were sniped at, we were fired on, yes.
After the war, and like my grandfather, he was in the Pacific Theater, and I lived in Hawaii when I was a child, and a lot of Japanese that live over there. And this was in the 70s. He said, I don't feel right. I'm really uncomfortable around all these Japanese people. Do you still have, I know that, obviously European people, but do you still have any ill will towards the German people, or not necessarily just the German people, but the people that was served in the German army?
Do I have any ill will? Occasionally it'll come back to me, and at my age, anyway, if I see somebody my age, say, I wonder what they were doing, at the time. I wonder whether they knew that the Holocaust was going on at that time, whether they knew people were being massacred and burned and everything else at that time. You can't lose that thought. You really can't. It's there. And talking about the Japanese, when my wife and I were in Hawaii, we went to the Arizona. And while we were at the Arizona, that was a ship that was sunk by the Japanese during Pearl Harbor. We lost, I think, 1,200 or 2,200 sailors on that ship. I don't remember. But the first thing that we saw was a load of Japanese tourists taking pictures. And your thought is, they're saying, oh boy, we did that to them. So I guess you don't lose a little of that, a little concern, a little hatred, perhaps. I hate to say hatred because that's not a good word. But you do lose, you do think of those things, yes.
Is there anything you'd like to share with, any stories or Anything you'd like to?
Well, the story that, the one that I had that I got the Chevalier de the Legion of Honor for was when we were in Cherbourg. I was driving a Jeep down the street and I noticed a couple of young boys. There were very few middle-aged people there, very few middle-aged men. They had been conscripted by the Germans. And some of them were wounded and some of them were limping. And I noticed that their bandages were all dirty, messy. And I was concerned that they'd get infected and sick and lose their arm or something. So I stopped and I talked to a sister who was standing that was near them. And I asked her if she spoke English. She said, little bit. And I asked, can I help in any way? And she said, clean bandages, clean wraps, she said. So I went back to my outfit and I got some clean wraps and I got some sulfur powder and things like that. And I started off with two little lads that were about 7 or 8 years old, and I wound up with about 26 of taking care of them as a first aid. So on my time off, I was doing first aid work for them, and I conscripted one of my nurses that were with me and a couple of my other GIs that were with me, and we went down and we got clean bandages. We were in Cherbourg for about 2 weeks, so we were able to, after the third day that we were there, we were able to start cleaning them up, and we were sure that some of those boys were still alive or girls were still alive, that we took care of them. And that was a pleasure for us. Even though it was our time off, it was great feeling that we were doing something good for these young people that had held for them for so many years. That was my best thought. And we also, when we were at the hospital, when we first got into the hospital, and it was the Pasteur Hospital in Cherbourg. It was the largest hospital in there. And the Luftwaffe had taken over before we got there. And it was such a mess that was unbelievable. And they were without electricity, and our generators weren't working properly because the wires on the roof weren't connected. They were blown apart or something. So my buddy and I went up on the roof and tried to splice which we did. We spliced the wires together while we were being sniped at by snipers. He finally got a Bronze Star for that.
What was daily life like in that unit you were with?
You know, I was just telling my wife, I don't remember how I cleaned my clothes. Little things like that. I don't remember how my clothes got cleaned. I know they were clean, but I don't remember how. Little things like that. Did we eat our meals outside? And
Call 111. Lori, call 111, please.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. How we ate, mostly time with mess kits. Before that, we had K rations. That's boxes of food that were a little tin of Spam, some crackers, a chocolate bar, or something like that. But then from there, we went to the mess kit, which we'd line up and get our food from and eat outside. We never had it like MASH with a mess tent, so that didn't go. Certain things that you see on TV is not there and was never there.
Yeah, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was over in Desert Storm, and the only hot meal we would get every once in a while was breakfast. That's why I think I'm still a breakfast fan.
We used to get hot meals, but it used to be, if you're in the rain, you had to find cover for it, and usually we sat in our tents. But my granddaughter is in the Air Force, and she's been over in Iraq twice now. And it's not a pleasant place, as you would know.
What did you do to pass the time? Because as most people don't realize, there's a lot of, it's not all, combat.
We never had movies. We never had USOs coming over and giving us entertainment. We were too small an outfit, especially when we went into our individual units. So we made our own entertainment up. We had a fellow that played accordion. We had one that played guitar. We sang. We had little, one of our boys shot some midget deers in the Hutkin Forest, and he was able to cure it and everything else, so we'd have a barbecue or something like that. But that was our entertainment, and our entertainment was ourselves, really. We talked a lot. We did a lot of work with the patients. That was our real concern. Our tent was always filled with patients, always. We were never with an empty bed, you might say. A couple of times, perhaps. When I got hurt with my ribs, they sent 4 of us down to the Riviera in France when we had already taken that. So that was a very pleasant thing. There we sat down and we ate meals. It was very cool. It took us 2 days to get down there in a slow train, but it was great. And the French people, as a whole, were nice. We were the first American troops in Paris. We were in Paris before the de Gaulle marched through, the Arc de Triomphe. They pulled us out of Paris and they put us in Le Bourget airfield in pup tents. We were in station, first when we went into Paris, we were at the Militaire École, the French school, military school. We were put in there. And then when they heard that de Gaulle was going to come through, they took us out and put us all the way out of town. They didn't want any American soldiers in there if possible. And then de Gaulle came marching through with the troops.
Did you think that was kind of
Yeah.
funny that they did that?
Yeah, we felt, hey, buddy, come on, we were there. Yeah, it was, we were sitting at the Café de la Paix before he even came in. So it was, we were there for a big 4 or 5 days, and then we were moved on. Our Hildesheim experience was where we were very close to Berlin, and they said, no, we're not going any further. We're going to let the Russians go in. We knew that, and we didn't like that either. We wanted to finish off what we started.
How were the, I know you see in the newsreels that the French people were very happy to see the American forces, or Allied forces. What were the German people like once you started going into Germany? We
were not allowed to talk to them. We were fined if we were found talking to them. We were fined $64, I believe, or something like that, if we were found talking to a German civilian. That was at the beginning, yeah. We weren't allowed to talk to any German.
All right.
That's something that I didn't remember until you just asked.
Was the time near the end of the war when it was over and done, how long did it take you to get back to the States?
We were at Camp Lucky Strike in the Mediterranean, near Marseille in the Mediterranean, and they were just waiting for a ship for us to come pick us up. And it took us, well, we were in Marseille for about a week, 2 weeks, and then we got on board ship, and the ship took us about 14 days to get to Staten Island, New York.
Did you walk home from there?
I flew home, no. I took a train.
Okay.
No, it was a very happy time. It was right before Thanksgiving.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? You can think of it?
I can't think of anything else except that I would hate to see more people killed during the war. I think it's a tragedy. I would love to see people settle differences different ways.
Well, so, in closing, how do you, looking back at your experience, do you feel it was something that was a positive part of your life? Do you think, how would you describe your experience during war?
Oh yeah, it was positive. It was very positive. Scary, but positive. Scary at times, but very positive. I think I did, not me personally, but we did a good thing by having these field hospitals. I think we improved the casualty rate so they would be a lot more alive today than we ever would have been if we didn't have these field hospitals. So I felt good about that. Yes, I had a good feeling when I got home. I can't say that about my brother, who was in the Pacific. He had a difficult time.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in and joining us.
Thank you.
Let me stop the recording process back here.